Welcome to Beyond Distribution with GTDC. I'm Kavita May, your guest host. In today's episode, I'm joined by Julie Simpson, founder and CEO of ResourceiT Consulting, and Jacquie Rives, Senior Director of Women of the Channel Community and Programs at the Channel Company. We'll explore where AI is opening new leadership paths, the human skills that are becoming more valuable, and why equal access to tools, training, mentorship, and visibility matters. We'll also discuss responsible AI use, including spotting bias, questioning outputs, and emerging roles in customer insight, automation, and partner enablement. This conversation also previews key themes from Women of the Channel Europe, which will take place in London on October 7th. For more information on the event, please visit the CRN UK website. Let's dive in. Thank you for joining me, ladies. I'm very excited to be here with you guys today. We have with our guests on this episode, we have Julie Simpson, who's CEO of ResourceiT Consulting Limited, and we have Jacquie Rives, Senior Director, Women of the Channel, Community and Programs for Channel Company. So welcome, ladies. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Very excited.
Wonderful. And I thought we would just take a couple minutes here for folks who are listening today who may not know you, just do a quick short introduction of who you are and your role a little bit before we launch into our conversation. So Julie, you want to start?
Sure, thank you. So I am Julie Simpson. I am founder and CEO of ResourceiT Consulting. So we're a channel marketing agency. Been working in the channel since 2003, delivered about 9,000 projects. So we work with big vendors, the hyperscalers. We also work with global SIs, ISVs, MSPs. So our understanding of technology channel partners and how they go to market is very, very broad. In my capacity for Women of the Channel, I've been involved with Women of the Channel for about 10 years and really excited to be on the Women of the Channel Europe advisory board and the session that we're going to talk about today, which is around AI adoption and leadership for AI in the technology channel. So that's me. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'll go next.
Yeah.
Yes, so I have the honor and privilege of getting to run our Women of the Channel programs and community globally here at the Channel Company. I've been here about 4 years, was in the channel prior to that as a COO of a MSP. So I got to attend the Channel Company's events and now getting to work on the other side. Building community is something that I've definitely been passionate about. It probably started with being in the military. And so you have no choice but to build community because you're away from your families. But getting to do that with amazing women leaders across the globe has been truly an honor. And getting to work with advisory board members, which both of you are, has just been a joy. And today it's funny that flip the script that now I'm a panelist, whereas usually I get to interview lots of women. So this will be fun. Thank you.
Look, that's great. And I've had the privilege of working alongside and with both of you ladies, and participating in the event. So Jacquie, let me start with you. I'm going to ask you a little bit about, we talked about the Women of the Channel Europe that's coming up here in a couple of months. If you could talk a little bit about that and what conversations you think are going to be the most important for the people in the room, especially when it comes to AI, leadership inclusion, the future of women in the IT channel, which is something that is a huge recurring theme for the events.
Yeah, absolutely. I am absolutely thrilled that we are returning to Europe for Women of the Channel Europe. We haven't been there since before COVID. We were talking about that a little earlier. I think that we're going to see a very strong focus on AI and how it's changing not just jobs, but leadership itself. Women are asking how they can leverage AI to be more strategic, more influential, and more effective leaders. And at the same time, there are important conversations around inclusion, as you mentioned, making sure women have equal access to AI tools, training, and opportunities. I think the future of leadership isn't just about adopting AI, but it's ensuring that we have diverse perspectives to shape how AI is being implemented across organizations and the channel ecosystem.
Excellent. And Julie, I do want to encourage, this is a conversation. So if anybody has anything to
Sure.
add to it, let me know. But Julie, so going on that, the panel um, theme for Women of the Channel Europe session is AI is rewriting leadership. Who's getting ahead and why? So from where you sit, what do you think is the biggest leadership shift that AI is driving right now across the IT channel and the broader tech industry?
I think the biggest shift is in how we are embracing the opportunity and making the right commercial decisions. And that goes across the board with the organizations we're talking to. You know, it's an unusual situation, I think, for all of us to be in where suddenly our opportunity is also our threat. And what we have to do as leaders is embrace the opportunity and exploit the opportunity, but keep ourselves aware of where the advantage exists for us in our organizations and with our customers. And when I think about women in leadership, and Jackie and I talked about this a lot when we were scoping out kind of what the panel is going to be at the
Mm.
Women of the Channel Europe event. We're having a business conversation. The fact that we are women, we are leaders having a business conversation and talking about the impact on our businesses. And, women, Jackie and I had a chat last week about kind of how we were going to answer some of the questions that you were going to ask us, Kavita. And the old adage where if a woman sees a job and she looks at all the criteria and she'll go, oh, I can't really apply for that because I've only got 90% of what it is actually asking for. Whereas a man will look at a job and go, oh, I've got half of that. I'm good enough. I'm going for it. And I think that same hesitation exists around AI. And I've read a lot of global studies. Women are 20 to 25% less likely than men to be using generative AI tools. So,
Mm.
why is that? Women care deeply about reputational risks around using AI, perhaps oftentimes more than men do. They will express ethical concerns, perhaps more than men will, and question AI accuracy. So, when you get a female leader, the adoption is different, I believe, to maybe where men would be using it. So the shift that we're seeing is around senior female leaders deeply educating themselves about the benefits, about the impact, and about the opportunity, but are very cognizant of the threat as well.
No, I think you're making, in my conversations with female leaders and female, you know, people in the workforce around IT who are dabbling with AI, I do hear that. I hear that as a common theme of, yeah, I'm not so sure, the ethical, the morality piece of it, the accuracy piece of it. And I think women, to your point, unless they feel that they're completely fluent on it, that they're a little hesitant to play around with it or to really invest in it. So Jackie, when people talk about AI leadership, right, they are talking about technology fluency most of the time. And I mean, what are your views on, the roles that judgment, communication, a lot of the things that we talk about, empathy, change management, right, are the bigger differentiators today, or is the ability to help teams adopt AI responsibly more important? What do you think? What are you hearing?
Yeah. I actually don't think it's an either or situation. Responsible AI adoption actually depends on those human-centered leadership skills. Organizations need leaders who can communicate clearly, build trust, understand what the employee concerns are, and guide teams through those change. Technical understanding and that technical understanding matters, but the leaders who are going to stand out are those who can connect technology with people and business outcomes. AI may be changing how we work, but it doesn't change what great leadership looks like. If anything, the rise of AI makes human skills, like you said, judgment, empathy, communication, adaptability, and relationship building even more valuable. That's why I think it's such an important conversation at Women of the Channel Europe and for future of leadership across the industry.
And do you think that AI, and a little bit more on that, do you think that leadership teams and leaders are changing the way they manage their teams, identify new business opportunities? Do you see any people adjusting their behavior with AI?
My own experience, AI is helping leaders make better informed decisions by providing that faster access to insights, uncovering those patterns that might otherwise be missed. And it's also helping teams automate routine work, which allows employees to focus on higher value activities. In the channel specifically, we're seeing opportunities across in customer insights, partner enablement, content creation, and operational efficiency. So leaders can spend more time being strategic and less time buried in administrative tasks.
That makes sense. So, Julie, for you, let's shift back more to the women in tech conversation and the IT channel. Where are you seeing AI creating the greatest opportunity for women in career growth, visibility, influence? What are you seeing there?
I think that, I mean, certainly what I'm learning and what we're doing as an organization and where it's working for us is, women do a lot of things and do it very, very quickly. And what AI can do for you, and the way we're embracing AI adoption is you're kind of, but we're going very much around the agentic. So you're building your own AI agent. And the opportunity for leaders to be able to almost have a conversation with themselves using AI, because you can't take the answers that you get when you're using like an AI tool as read. You've got to interrogate it and challenge it, and it makes you think differently. And I think for me, I'm able to almost challenge myself with some of the opinions that I have, the feedback that I have,
Mm.
maybe things I haven't thought of, but I don't take the response as read. So it's about using the tool to challenge and gather information, and challenging yourself as a leader. Do I agree with that? Do I not agree with that? Is that relevant to me? Is it not relevant to me? Because what you can do is get swept up into a whole load of dialogue that you hadn't actually thought of, and then lose sight of the reason why you were working with AI in the first place. And I would also agree with what Jackie said. We at Resource IT, we're looking at the streamlining of our processes, the things that it doesn't have to be the human being. And I think most businesses are doing that, because if, the ultimate is to have an AI powered service. You can't have an AI powered service or create an AI powered service unless you've worked on the adoption with the people and the application of the technology in the first place. So it's a journey, I believe, which starts with education for yourself and understanding how to use the tools and where you can gain productivity, thinking about the streamlining of the processes, and then how do you then use that to create new revenue streams. And it's coming at us like a freight train. There's no getting away from it. I've spoken to quite a lot of M&A and different private equity firms, and some of these businesses are getting 8 times their multiple on a resale if they've got AI embedded in their organization. It will add value to your organization, but it has to be in the right way, because your customers cannot suffer while you learn about it.
No, excellent. And I really relate to what you talked about regarding using AI to kind of challenge and present a new perspective or a new lens, because I think a lot of times in using certain tools we kind of silo ourselves into it spitting back to us what we already believe and what we already know, instead of using the query and using the tool in a way that makes you think outside the box and outside your conventional way of looking at things. So what you said is learning how to use it is so important. And there is I think, a considerable learning curve. But you're right. I think, it's coming at us, so we might as well embrace everything we can and grab all of the learning that we can to make it work for us. So you touched on something there also about, you know, it creating the opportunity piece of it. And then on the other side of it, Jacquie, a lot of people, there's a lot of conversations about AI can level the playing field, but it can also reinforce the gaps that are there, and even biases that are there. In your opinion, what do you think companies should be doing now to make sure that AI adoption is expanding the opportunity for women rather than limiting it?
Yeah, great question. Organizations need to be intentional in that rollout. It's what people do with that opportunity that can create the gaps of leaving them behind. Starts with ensuring women have equal access to the training tools, mentorship, high visibility projects. And companies should regularly evaluate their AI systems for bias and ensure that diverse voices are involved in those technology decisions. Inclusion, as we know, it just can't be an afterthought. It needs to be built in both the development and the deployment of AI.
Yeah,
Great.
I would agree with that, totally. The One of the key ways we got started, Kavita, was on prompting. So one of the first things we did was we really focused on how do I ask the right questions of the AI tools in the first place to be able to give the context to be able to get the answers that I'm looking for. And, driving adoption internally has not been an easy path to follow because you've got a lot of people who've done what they've done brilliantly for a long time. They don't really see why they need to learn anything else or how on earth can that possibly teach me? It's a machine.
Mhm.
It's not going to teach me. I know what I'm doing. But actually, if you focus on the prompting
Yeah.
and leaders encouraging their people to know how to ask the questions to get the answers they're looking for, and then we wrote up some use cases as people started to do it, which we then circulated across the organization. And everyone then started looking over the fence and wanting to know. And I think one of the biggest things to success here is creating the desire for the growth and opportunity from the people that are going to use the tools and that them seeing what it can do for them. And the training is such a big part of that. Training has come back in
Mhm.
as one of the most valuable things to invest in for people in the business. We've got a head of people training and culture here, and it's in everybody's learning and development plans. It's a really important investment for people's growth, and everybody's embracing it. So I'm really enthusiastic and feel very passionately about how people are guided and encouraged to leverage the tools in the right way. And that prompting thing is one of the biggest tips I give to people when I talk to them about how do I get people using it.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
can I like just
yes.
stress another thing that Julie said earlier because it kind of goes with what she just said, the training with that training is training people to question the output. Because that's one of the biggest pitfalls that I've noticed is that people just, some people just readily accept what's been
Mhm.
spit out without really questioning those results. And AI is amazing, but it is far from perfect.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. I mean, I can tell you anecdotes that would just make you roll your eyes as far as, and the funny thing is, and depending on the tool, and I'm not going to mention the tool, but um, the one tool that I use for just everyday personal things outside work, I asked her a question, he gave me a completely rubbish answer. And when I challenged it, it said, well, everybody makes mistakes. That was the answer back. And I just, well, then what good are you for me right now? But it was very funny. And I learned a lot from it. That was, Jacquie, an example in a very small, minimal way. So imagine catapulting that into how you do your job. So Julie, you talked a lot about and very importantly about the importance of prompt and the importance of training. So, are there specific skills that you think that women really should be doubling down on, right? As that
Yeah,
impacts all aspects of sales, marketing, operations, et cetera, and partner engagement.
yeah, I do. I think, look, the vendors have got a challenge, haven't they, right? Because the vendors are pushing out the technology and then they've got to get the channel on board to be able to position that with customers. And, it's a bit like if you learn how to order a beer in Spanish and you can say, dos cervezas, por favor. And you get so good at it that the waiter then answers you in Spanish and then you haven't got a clue what he said. And I feel a bit like that with the AI conversation, that there's been such a surface level of information and education being provided about AI from the vendors that the partners are desperate for a deeper level of understanding about how to have a customer conversation. And if I was talking to any woman now who is in a leadership position about the skills, it would be really drilling down into the business benefits of the technology and becoming expert and specialist in a particular area. Because if you can go and have a proper conversation with the Spanish waiter, that is going to elevate you above every other partner, because most partners are struggling. And let's face it, right? We make money in the way we make money. To move the pistons is quite a big thing to do. We can't suddenly say, oh, we make money like this. Oh, well, now we make it like that. And it suddenly shifts. So we've got to keep our business coming in and keep the revenue flowing whilst we educate and lead our customers to a new position and give ourselves the opportunity to do that. So for me, the advice I would say is becoming an expert in a particular, whether it's a vertical or a work stream or an element of business process. What does this mean to your customers and to your business? And how can you go a level deeper to really become expert in an area of specialization? And I think that will give women a competitive edge.
Excellent. And I mean, on that, Jackie, do you think that, as AI becomes a bigger part of the business and how we do things, for the smallest things to the biggest things, do you think that women are going to look the traditional path that women are going to look into? Are they going to, do you think it's going to change that? Do you think that's going to open more leadership opportunities when it comes in data automation, customer insight, community building, ecosystem orchestration? Do you see that changing?
Yeah, so Julie and I had an extensive conversation about this one. I think, Julie, if I remember correctly, it was 85% of women will have at least one child. So,
Yes.
with that, there's career breaks, kids playing catch up. And I even shared, my feelings of, inadequacy when I did take a bit of a career break and started my own business just to be more available to my kids. But, it just clicked one day, these skills that we have in those career breaks, those things that we're learning are so transferable, like emotional intelligence, human capabilities. These things become more, not less with AI. So I would say AI is creating new leadership opportunities
Mm,
that didn't exist a few years ago. We're seeing growing demand for leaders who can bring business strategy, customer experience, data, community engagement, partnerships, technology. Many of these roles reward collaboration, communication, and ecosystem thinking, skills that have long been strengths for many successful women leaders in the channel.
mhm. No, great. I totally agree with you. And I think there's a tremendous opportunity. I think people sometimes get bogged down with the gloom and doom of AI instead of looking, okay, where can I fill that gap where AI is going? Let me start harness my talents and my superpowers to address it. And with that, Julie, I mean, what are your thoughts as far as what risks women in tech should be aware of, as AI becomes a more prevalent tool used for hiring, performance measurements, KPIs, tracking productivity, decision making. What do you think women should be a little cautious about?
Yeah, I think you touched on it, Kavita, around the bias thing, right? So, we know that the large language models respond to the information that already exists. So all they can do is go out into the ether and then bring back the facts. And if that historic bias exists, and that's where the large language models are getting their information, then that bias will only exacerbate as the AI tools are used. So I think we need to be aware of that. And, as Jackie said, we had a big chat. And I also, I think women are fundamentally more exposed to abuse, through AI adoption. It doesn't take a genius to work out what that threat is.
Hmm.
And we need to be very, very aware of it. And kind of how we communicate, how we use the tools, how we come across what we are downloading, what we're accessing for ourselves and our children, is a big, big risk. And we need to be very, very mindful and perhaps even more cautious than we would have been now that access to us is so easy. Personally, I don't use Facebook or any of those tools. I use LinkedIn as a business tool, and it's my professional network. But I'm sure that there are elements that I am things I am doing that probably could be a risk to my business because of the information that I'm putting on LinkedIn. Like, all of us as human beings are exposed because the hackers, the technology is getting stronger, the cyber threat is increasing. I think for all of us, whether it's personally or professionally or through our businesses, have to be cognizant of where we're exposed, and that damage can be catastrophic in so many ways.
It's interesting. I think that, we are in our areas of work and business and what we do in the channel and advising, we're encouraged to, be thought leaders and put out content and information that is relevant, that's important, that is helpful to the community. And at the same time, we have to be so cognizant of what we're putting out there, so it's
Yeah.
not used against us or in a way that will harm us or
Oh,
harm our community. So such a strange balance to have to consider. You don't want to be too general, but then again, you maybe get punished by being too specific. So it's
yeah.
it's quite interesting, the world that we're living in at this time. And I'm
Yeah.
sure we'll try to navigate better through it, but it's been an interesting learning curve, I think, for all of us.
Yeah, I think so. And they can even, the technology can even make you look like you've said things you haven't actually said.
Yeah.
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 So
Very
I can
much
add,
so.
what,
I'm going to add
what do
one
you
more
do about?
thing. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
Karen.
I'm going to save the last question here for Jackie. We talk a lot about men as allies in our Women of the Channel conversations, in our forums, in our dialogues, at our events, etc., with the entire community. So, you work closely with all of them. So, what do you think male allies, executive sponsors, and also organizations as a whole, not just about men, do differently to support women, as AI is reshaping roles and expectations and all the things that we talked about, advancement opportunities across the entire tech force?
Yeah, absolutely. Super easy. They should ensure that women are included in those AI conversations from the start. Not just as users of the technology, but as decision makers, so that they can help shape the strategy and adoption. Sponsors can help create opportunities for women to lead AI initiatives, participate in training, and gain exposure to those emerging areas of the business. Ultimately, the organizations that benefit most from AI are going to be the ones that combine innovative technology with the diverse perspectives and inclusive leadership.
Excellent. Well, this was a fantastic conversation. I wouldn't have expected anything less, but yet I'm filled with joy in talking to both of you. Um, I just want to thank Jacquie Rives, Julie Simpson. What a fantastic conversation. I'm sure the event in October, it's October 7th, Jacquie, is that correct?
That
I
is
believe.
correct.
Excellent. So, Women of the Channel Europe, October 7th in London, beautiful time of the year. So, anybody who's interested in learning more, we'll make sure to share those details with you. But with that, I wanted to thank you both for participating. Really appreciate it.
Yes,
Thank
thank you for
you.
having us.
That was great to be here. Lovely to
Yes.
see you. Thank you, Kavita.